Greetings, YouTube. To my surprise, Scott Reorder was found guilty of first-degree murder in the shooting death of Dr. George Tiller. Now, I actually didn't think this was going to happen, particularly if you take into account that this case took place in Kansas, which is a very conservative community. But the most shocking part of this whole process is that the jury came to their verdict in 37 minutes. That's barely enough time to get the jury seated. And yet, they came to a vote, made a decision, and we're back in the court before probably the court was even aware that they were, fully convened. And in the trial, the only defense witness that was called was Reorder himself. And I find that interesting as well, that their decision to put forth no other witnesses. Now, I don't know if this was a tactic on their part, or if they simply couldn't find anyone to defend Reorder. I'm not sure, and we may very well never know why. I mean, the defense team has no need to tell anyone what they did or why they did it. It's, client-attorney confidentiality kind of a situation. But Reorder said that, he had to kill Tiller to save lives, and he had no regrets for what he did. Well, I guess lives were very important to Mr. Reorder, except for the one that he killed. And of course, the huge controversy with this entire case was the issue of abortion, and in particular, late-term abortion. And it is a controversy, and it's a controversy that is used every day by politicians to get themselves elected. And it's a controversy that I don't think is ever going to be resolved to the satisfaction of the anti-choice crowd, because it is too useful to politicians as a hot-button social issue. It serves a purpose. And as that purpose cannot be replaced by anything else, because there isn't any other social issue that is this hot and this controversial, I don't see that it's going to get quote-unquote solved anytime soon. But if you take the controversy out of this case, if you didn't know what Dr. Tiller did, and if you didn't know the reason that Mr. Reorder said that he used as justification, you just look at the crime itself. I don't really think there was any way he could defend himself. It was pretty much a slam dunk. A man walked into a church, pointed a firearm at another human being, and murdered him in cold blood. In addition, he threatened 2 other people with the same firearm. So he was also brought up on charges related to that, as well as the first-degree murder. And the defense attorney wanted to have the option of manslaughter brought forward to the jury, and he successfully did that. The jury actually had the ability to choose manslaughter if they wanted to, and thankfully they didn't. They charged him with first-degree murder, which is what he was guilty of. He did confess repeatedly. I don't really think there was any way he could have gotten away with this. It's just that the venue itself is what surprised me. I thought that if there was any chance at all of him getting either a manslaughter or being acquitted, Kansas was the best place for this to happen in. And he faces potential life in prison. I guess the sentencing will be taking place on March 9th. And regardless of whether he gets life imprisonment or not, he's been found guilty, and justifiably so. And you may wonder, what do I think should happen to Mr. Reorder now? Well, what I think should happen is I think he should go to jail. I think he's deserving of a life in prison situation, and that does mean that he might eventually be eligible for parole. But in the meantime, I want him sent to prison. I want him treated humanely and justly. I do not want him harmed. I do not want any of his freedoms abridged that are not part of his sentence. And I want him to live his life out as long as nature dictates he lives. I want no harm to come to this man. I have not an ounce of vengeance toward him at all when it comes to his existence. Why? Because I want him treated humanely. Because I'm human. Because I have compassion for him as a fellow human being. And while he may be significantly more flawed than your average person, we're all flawed. We all have our problems. None of us is perfect. He just chose to take it one step further, the ultimate step, if you will, of taking another human being's life. Because he decided that his worldview was more important than someone else's life, which is quite possibly the most horrifying aspect of this case. That he decided that he had the ability and the right to impose what he thought upon another with a firearm. That's scary. And I'm glad he was found guilty. And I'm hoping he gets life imprisonment. But I want nothing bad to happen to him. I'm hoping maybe someday he comes to realize what he's done was wrong. But I'm not sure if that's going to happen either.